Hey everyone, it's Matt here. Retirement. Sounds great, right? We all aspire to one day wake up Monday morning and not have to go to work. Instead, maybe we'll go on some cruise, go to foreign countries, buy those things we've always wanted like a Tesla, maybe remodel the kitchen, get some new stainless steel upgraded appliances, spend more time with family and friends at the country club, and maybe, just maybe, learn to play the piano. But then why is it that 18.5% of those over the age of 65 live in poverty? It's no wonder that 35% of those who are 65 and older in the workforce have already once retired. They're going back to work. And over half of those people who retired, 52%, fear of running out of money. So how can anyone expect to retire early? Well, in today's video, we'll go over 6 steps so that you can be confident and retire when you want to. To begin our journey, step 1. What age do you want to retire? Recent research has shown that before the pandemic, the age of retirement has steadily been increasing, but it's taken a turn for the opposite, and now people are actually retiring earlier. In fact, nearly half of all Americans polled said that they wanted to retire before 62. So that's even before what we would consider, at least Social Security would consider, an early retirement. This is not just isolated to the US. Europe and China have also experienced this type of early retirement. They're calling it the Great Resignation. So why is this happening? How can people actually retire earlier when people generally weren't retiring that well at all? Well, it becomes a question of values. Recent studies again have shown that because of COVID-19, people have actually started to value their time more. And the age, I guess you could say the age of mortality has decreased by 2 years. So people are now feeling that they need to retire earlier and spend more time with the family. The second theory is that because the stock market and real estate booms, people's portfolios of assets have actually increased to the point where they can now retire ahead of schedule. So if you're planning on retiring even earlier than planned, here are the things you need to look at. Now, in addition to those 18.5% of those 65 and older who are living in poverty, 35 to 64% of those folks are actually expected to run out of money based on a report that came out in 2019. How can that be? Well, it says on average that the average retiree actually only makes about $24,000 a year. While that's not near the poverty line, because the poverty line in the US is, nearly half of that, those folks who are making $24,000 aren't getting any support or any government programs to help pay for things like medical bills, housing, etc. So the $24,000 that they're making is all they have. Well, what about 401k, you might ask, and their wonderful IRAs and retirement and investments? Well, for those who are age 65 and older, the average 401k is actually somewhere between $60,000 to $65,000. So that's not going to work. And even if we were to apply the magical 4% rule, that's really only $2,500 they can pull out a year. So that's not nearly going to be enough to help them fight or at least keep them out of poverty or going back to work. Another thing to mention if you do retire early is that Medicare doesn't start till 65. So until then, you're going to need to pick up something from the healthcare.gov or some private health insurance that might not be up to par, or at least what you're comfortable having at work. So be sure to plan for those things when you retire, and especially if you're going to retire early. Last thing to keep in mind is your current lifestyle, your family history, and of course what you plan to do in retirement. Because remember now, if you don't have to wake up to go to that 9 to 5, you got a lot more time on your hands. Step 2, the fun part. How much have you already accumulated? What's that magic number that you already have so that you can create a baseline asset to create income that'll last you for the rest of your life? Many people have an expected $1 million mark as their magic number. Unfortunately though, that probably isn't going to be enough, as a recent study shows $1 million will probably only last the average person about 19 years. To make matters even worse, the average 401k balance is actually only $64,000. So even if $1 million was that magic number, most people, even those who are 65, are nowhere near that. Now, one thing to look into, this data is very much just that. It's just data. The mean and the median are very different in this example, or at least in what the data subset shows, which basically means that there's a whole lot of people who have very large 401k balances and a whole lot of people who have very low 401k balances. So whatever you do, make sure you remember to invest or at least put money away for retirement and not think that you are doing well because you're in the average. Make sure you have enough money for your retirement, whatever that looks like. Another benefit for saving for retirement is the magic, yes, more magic, of compound interest. And compound interest just pretty much says that the interest you earn 1 year becomes part of the principal and adds to your interest earned for the next year. So what does all this mean for you, especially you who might not have that hefty 401k balance? Well, the earlier you start, the better. Simply by starting 7 years earlier and retiring at age 65 with a net worth of over $300,000 and a modest, very modest 6% average annual portfolio growth, over the 3 decades, you'd have a whopping $325,000 more, and you'd only have invested $42,000 more. So as you can see, time, compound interest, those things can superiorly maximize or at least give you a head start on wealth. And if you haven't started saving yet, be sure to start saving at least up to the employer match on your 401k. Any more than that, you can choose whichever platform you want. Webull is a good one, and currently they're running a promo where you can get 2 free stocks just for signing up, with a link down below. One last pointer for step 2 is you can't count things that you're actually using. For example, if you're living in your house, you can't count that as an investment or liquid assets to add to this number, unless you of course plan on selling it and living with family or something, because the house is where you're living in, that's not an investment. Cars, not an investment. Furniture, typically not an investment, at least when you're calculating this number for step 2. Step 3, now we went from the fun magic number to the not so fun budget question. So how much does it take to actually run your household? The average household costs about $63,000 to run, at least in 2013. Now, if we were to push that up with the average inflation rate over those last 8 years, that number actually jumps all the way up to $76,000 per year. And that's the average cost for a family of 4 in at least 2021, adjusted for inflation based on the 2013 numbers. So that's quite a lot of money. $76,000 is pretty big for every year. If you haven't already started on a budget, think 50-30-20. Now this is a rule that many people have at least come up with on the internet, where 50% of your income goes to things that you need. Think things like housing, rent, utilities, food, transportation, insurance, and minimum loan payments. 30% of them goes into wants. But you're like, wait, Matt, what about that coffee? I need my morning coffee to start my day. Well, so do I. But you know what I do? You can get a simple Mr. Coffee 5-cup coffee maker for all $20 on Amazon. Then you can go ahead and get some Folgers medium roast, which I get $11, and some $5 coffee filters. All in, that's a little under 40 bucks. Now, this setup makes 200 cups of perfectly good coffee, which comes out to about 20 cents or so, a cup. And after the month or 2 has gone by and you've drank those first 200 cups, you don't have to rebuy the coffee maker, so we're down to about 8 cents a cup. So don't tell me that you need your coffee and you have to get it at Starbucks. Just go and get a machine. That's what I did. Back to the 30% for lifestyle. Lifestyle expenses typically include stuff like Starbucks and things like entertainment, travel, streaming services, and going out to eat. Now the last portion, that 20%, goes into things like paying off your debt, saving in your 401k, and starting that emergency fund. Fortunately though, we learned that the opposite way: put into your emergency fund, save for your 401k, and start repaying down your debt. If you want to learn more about how to best strategize that portion of your budget, you can click on here where I go over how to start investing in your 401k and what 7 steps you should go through and where you should put the money starting from the beginning. But here's a pro tip for you folks who really want to retire early. The 50-30-20 rule is for your average person. If you want to retire super early, most people will save anywhere between 50 to 70% of their income into that last section. So paying down debt, saving for your 401k, they will allocate 50 to 70% of their income into that bucket so they can retire much earlier and already have a lower baseline of expenses based on, the needs and the wants being only, 20 to 50% of their budget. They can actually retire far earlier than 65. All right, where were we? We're on step 4 is what to expect Social Security to be. Many of us, me included, don't think that Social Security is really going to play that big of a role in our retirement. Number one, because we're going to retire before we're 62 and Social Security won't even start by then. And the liquidity and the validity of the Social Security and all their enhancements and changes that they're going to do in the next, 10, 20, 30 years when we're actually eligible for those things, we can't really predict. You can go on if you're closer to retirement, you're closer to collecting Social Security, let's say you're in your 60s, you can go online and check your Social Security account to see what your primary insurance amount is going to be. That can give you a good idea of a base level of income you can get, annually to help you calculate and kind of hone in on your retirement. But for people like us, what I like to tell you is save as much as you can in your 401k, invest the rest into IRA, into stock market, into real estate, whatever you can, because to be quite honest, Social Security is not going to be the reliable source of income, at least for us. So in case you came here for the Social Security segment, pretty much Social Security takes out 12.4% of our income. Well, 6.2% from yourself, 6.2% from your employer. If you're self-employed like me, you pay the whole thing, 12.4%. That amount is paid into the system. You have an average of 35 years, which is what Social Security averages there or uses as their baseline for years worked. And then you get paid based on that. And the average Social Security payment in at least 2021 was about $1,500, with the maximum being just under $3,200. And the maximum Social Security benefit means that you've been making about $142,000 a year, paying the maximum of $17,000 per year in Social Security payroll deductions. So that's kind of the math behind that. And yeah, it does seem like you're paying a lot for Social Security, paying a lot for something that might not be there, but that's currently how the system works. Step 5, how am I going to cover my expenses? Now, you're like, holy moly, Matt, we're at step 5 and we're only covering our expenses now. Well, what you need to do is you actually have to have calculated what your expenses were, what you might have as far as income to cover, and then what age you retire, because all those things make the most sense when you are at step 5, because now you can finally take your expenses, subtract it, and find out what income you need, which is the most important thing, what income you need to survive when you're not working anymore. We're going to take the number from step 4 and subtract it from step 3. But hang on, that only works if you're getting Social Security. If not, you just take the number from step 3, and now we have to figure out what to do about that number. And you're thinking, wait, Matt, at 45, when I plan to retire, I can't collect Social Security, my 401k, IRA, all locked up because of that 59.5 thing. What am I going to do? Right. What are you going to do? So how much of those assets, or how much assets do you need? Experts have pondered over this for decades, it seems, with William Benjamin and his 4% rule back in the 80s, and PFau, who recently said it's a 2.4% withdrawal rate that will make your income or make your money last for 30 years, which is, to me, ridiculous. So what do? You kind of have to just work with the numbers and be very flexible. Maybe on good years, you spend a little more. On bad years, you spend a little less or spend very frugally. So it's going to be more of a dynamic retirement, especially for those of you who are retiring before any of the social programs kick in. Things like Medicare that will have much or have you pay far less in medical bills. Things like Social Security, which give you a base level of income. Those things won't be available for you, more for me, if I retire at age 45. And to compound and make things worse, the top 10 things that Kiplinger.com says that actually increase. All right, we finally reached step 6 in this 6-step process, and that's how long do you expect to live? We saved the best for last. So a recent study shows that in the US, the life expectancy actually decreased by 2 years. So we're living less, which is not a good thing, but it's a good thing when it comes to retirement, because that's less years that we have to budget for. Now, as I said earlier, 52% of retirees actually feared running out of money and going into poverty when they retired. So make sure that's not you. So what you need to do now is, you got that number that you need. How much expenses per year? You're going to take that expenses per year and multiply it by the life expectancy that you have left. Now here's the Social Security life expectancy kind of table. So on average, if you're a 50-year-old male, your life expectancy, according to Social Security, is 29.88 years. And if you're a female, it's 33.51 years. Now, if you're a super go-getter and you retire at 40, then your life expectancy for a male is 38.75 years, and for a female is 42.76. So for safety reasons, when you retire, plan for about 35 to maybe 45 years of expenses, so you can cover either end of that. And if you pass on too early, you definitely make your spouse and your kids happy if you got some life insurance too. Now, in summary, of course, there are 1,000 ways to skin a cat, 1,000 ways to plan for retirement. But the most important thing, data, analytics, all that aside, is you. You are the most important person, the important variable in this retirement planning process. Many times I have actually, gone back to the data, talked to my clients about the data, and the data doesn't matter. What matters is how much you have, how much it costs to run your retirement, how long you plan to live, and what you want your retirement to look like. And those 4 things are pretty much addressed here in this video. Now, there are nuances, things like insurance, unexpected costs, legacy, but all those things are pretty much not that important until we get these 6 basic steps down, because from there we can start building a better retirement for you. Now, like I said before, I used to do this as a profession. I will tell you that it is very difficult, not the numbers portion, but the people portion. So emotionally, you guys gotta just sit down, figure it out. You can do it over 20, 30 minutes, maybe once a year. I figure that's a really good investment of time. And kind of enjoy the process, right? Think about all the possibilities and things you can get, and think about ways you can get there, and be creative, think outside the box. Don't forget to hit the like on my video if you did find some value. Hit up my link down there for those 2 free stocks from Weibo by depositing $100. Also, check my sweet coffee cheap setup that I have down there in my links. And of course, I'll see you on a Tuesday, Thursday, sometimes a Friday for more videos about finance. And remember, enjoy the journey. And I'll see you in the next video.